Welcome to the Network Plus Prepcast, your dedicated audio companion for mastering every objective on the CompTIA Network Plus certification exam. This series is produced by baremetalcyber.com. In networking, packet size plays a more critical role than most people realize. Every piece of data that travels across a network is broken down into smaller units, and how those units are sized directly affects whether that data reaches its destination reliably and efficiently. If packets are too large for a particular link or interface to handle, they may need to be fragmented or even dropped entirely, resulting in retransmissions, higher latency, and decreased throughput. Proper sizing ensures consistent delivery, while poorly sized packets can lead to frustration, instability, and bottlenecks. This is where the concepts of maximum transmission unit, or MTU, and fragmentation become essential. MTU defines the maximum size a data frame can be as it passes through a network link without needing to be split apart. When a packet exceeds this limit, it must be fragmented into smaller pieces, adding processing overhead and complexity. Both MTU and fragmentation influence the performance of devices, compatibility across different media types, and visibility within OSI model layers. Understanding them is foundational for network planning, diagnostics, and certification success. The MTU, or maximum transmission unit, defines the largest frame or packet that can be transmitted over a particular network interface without needing to be divided. This size is dictated by physical media, interface specifications, and protocol overhead. MTU applies to the entire data unit, including headers, and must be small enough to travel across each link in a network path without exceeding size restrictions. When data packets exceed the MTU of any interface in the path, they may require fragmentation or risk being discarded, disrupting communication. MTU values are not the same for every type of connection. On standard Ethernet networks, the typical MTU is 1,500 bytes, including headers. This value is large enough to accommodate most typical internet traffic without fragmentation. However, virtual private networks and tunneling protocols like GRE or IPsec often introduce additional headers, reducing the usable MTU to accommodate encapsulated content. In wireless networks, MTU values may be smaller due to limitations in signal integrity, protocol behavior, or hardware processing capabilities, requiring careful adjustment to prevent packet loss. When a packet exceeds the MTU for a link, devices must make a decision, either fragment the packet or drop it. If fragmentation is allowed, the data is split into smaller units that conform to the MTU. If fragmentation is not permitted or not supported by the protocol in use, the packet will be discarded, often without reaching its intended destination. This may trigger retransmission attempts from the sender, increasing latency and causing congestion. Additionally, when fragmentation happens repeatedly, it may lead to cumulative performance degradation across the network. Fragmentation is the act of dividing a large packet into smaller fragments, each of which is small enough to travel across a given network segment. This occurs at layer 3 of the OSI model, typically during IP-level processing. Each fragment is assigned an identification number and an offset value to indicate its place in the original packet. These fragments are then individually transmitted to the destination, where they are reassembled by the receiving system. While this allows for compatibility with limited MTU links, it also introduces complexity and risk if any of the fragments are lost or delayed. In IPv4, fragmentation behavior is governed by header fields that include flags and offset values. One of these flags can be set to prevent fragmentation, while others signal that a packet has been fragmented. Routers in IPv4 networks can perform fragmentation themselves if a packet exceeds the local MTU. While this flexibility allows for packet forwarding across mixed MTU environments, it also increases router processing load and adds significant overhead to the network. Each fragment must be treated as an individual packet, complete with its own header and routing logic. IPv6 takes a different approach by removing the ability of intermediate routers to fragment packets. In IPv6, only the originating host is allowed to perform fragmentation, and it must rely on path MTU discovery to ensure the packet size is appropriate for the entire path. This shift simplifies router behavior, improving performance and reducing processing overhead in the core of the network. Instead of relying on routers to handle fragmentation dynamically, IPv6 packets use extension headers that assist in reassembly when fragmentation is absolutely necessary, but only if pre-split by the sender. Path MTU discovery is a method used by sending devices to determine the smallest MTU along a network path to the destination. It works by sending packets with the don't fragment bit set and listening for ICP responses from routers that cannot forward them due to MTU constraints. If a router encounters such a packet and cannot fragment it, it responds with an ICP fragmentation needed message, including the MTU value it supports. The sender then reduces its packet size and tries again, repeating this process until a suitable MTU is found for uninterrupted delivery. Packet loss becomes a larger concern when fragmentation is involved. Because each fragment is treated as an individual unit, the failure of even a single fragment means the entire packet must be discarded. This forces retransmissions, especially in TCP-based sessions, and leads to unnecessary network load and increased latency. Real-time traffic, such as VoIP and video conferencing, can also suffer, as these applications often lack mechanisms to recover from partial data loss. Fragmentation, while useful, carries performance penalties that must be weighed carefully. Managing MTU settings is essential for maintaining network reliability and throughput. MTU can be configured on routers, switches, firewalls, and endpoint devices to suit specific network needs. It's important to align MTU settings across connected devices to prevent mismatches that result in unnecessary fragmentation. The right configuration balances speed and compatibility. Too high an MTU may cause packet loss on paths with lower limits, while too low an MTU can increase header overhead and reduce throughput. Periodic review of these settings helps prevent fragmentation issues from going unnoticed. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other podcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Understanding the relationship between maximum transmission unit and TCP maximum segment size, or MSS, is key to managing data flow efficiently. MSS defines the largest amount of data that a TCP segment can carry, excluding the IP and TCP headers. This value is typically derived by subtracting 40 bytes from the MTU to account for those headers. For example, with a standard Ethernet MTU of 1,500 bytes, the MSS is usually set to 1,460 bytes. Setting the MSS appropriately ensures that the entire TCP segment, including headers, fits within the MTU and avoids fragmentation. Fragmentation introduces multiple layers of overhead that can reduce network performance. Each fragment must be independently processed, transmitted, and validated. This increases the total number of packets, raises CPU usage on networking equipment, and extends the time required for reassembly. Fragmented packets can also arrive out of order, causing delays in data reconstruction. In some cases, excessive fragmentation may even lead to session instability, jitter, or service degradation, especially in latency-sensitive applications. Jumbo frames offer a way to bypass some of the problems associated with standard MTU limits. A jumbo frame is any Ethernet frame with a payload larger than the standard 1,500 bytes, often around 9,000 bytes. These frames can significantly improve performance in high-speed networks, such as those used in data centers or for storage traffic, by reducing header overhead and increasing payload efficiency. However, all devices along the path must support jumbo frames. If even one device does not, communication may break down or require fallback fragmentation, negating the benefits. The Internet Control Message Protocol, or ICPM, plays a vital role in path MTU discovery. When a router receives a packet that is too large to forward and the packet is marked with the Don't Fragment flag, the router responds with an ICPM fragmentation needed message. This informs the sender that the packet cannot be forwarded without size reduction. The message includes the maximum MTU for the next hop, allowing the sender to adjust accordingly. This feedback mechanism is essential for maintaining dynamic compatibility across varying network links. Network administrators often rely on diagnostic tools to view and analyze fragmentation. Tools like Wireshark reveal fragmented packets by identifying specific flags in the IP header, showing the total length, fragment offset, and the more fragments bit. Analyzing this data helps determine whether fragmentation is expected or a result of misconfiguration. Visibility into fragmentation is critical when investigating packet loss, unexpected retransmissions, or performance degradation, especially in large or complex environments where MTU mismatches can be difficult to detect otherwise. Avoiding fragmentation begins with proper configuration. Consistent MTU settings across routers, switches, VPN devices, and endpoints can eliminate many common issues. When designing or updating networks, it's important to test MTU behavior across each link. Monitoring for ICP error messages can alert administrators to potential problems. Where fragmentation cannot be avoided, using protocols that handle retransmission, such as TCP, can help mitigate its impact. Regular reviews of MTU logs, especially after topology changes, help maintain stable network performance. For protocols that do not support retransmission, such as UDP, fragmentation presents a bigger risk. If even one fragment is lost, the entire datagram must be discarded. Unlike TCP, there is no automatic recovery mechanism. This makes fragmentation particularly problematic for real-time applications like video streaming, VoIP, or gaming, where missing data results in gaps or degraded quality. These protocols must avoid sending data units that exceed the path MTU to maintain stability and ensure continuous service. Fragmentation scenarios often appear on the Network Plus exam, and understanding how to identify and address them is critical. Questions may include interpreting packet capture data, diagnosing packet loss, or identifying MTU mismatches. Some items may test your knowledge of differences between IPv4 and IPv6 fragmentation behaviors, or require you to determine when and why fragmentation occurred. Other scenarios may ask you to analyze why a VPN or tunneled connection fails under heavy load due to added headers that exceed MTU limits. The interaction between packet size, MTU, fragmentation, and protocol behavior lies at the heart of efficient network operation. Large packets carry more data but increase the chance of exceeding MTU limits. Small packets avoid fragmentation but introduce more overhead. Finding the right balance requires awareness of your network's topology, device capabilities, and protocol behaviors. MTU management is not a one-time task. It's an ongoing process that must be revisited whenever routes change, devices are replaced, or services are added. Ultimately, MTU and fragmentation govern how data flows across every link in the network. From configuring interfaces to analyzing packet traces, knowing how these mechanisms work helps you optimize performance, reduce errors, and support a wide range of applications. Whether you're managing a corporate LAN, deploying a VPN, or preparing for a certification exam, the ability to understand and control packet-sized behavior is a skill that pays off in every layer of the stack. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Network Plus Prepcast, your trusted audio guide to the CompTIA Network Plus certification. This episode was produced by baremetalcyber.com. For more cybersecurity podcasts, books, and resources, visit baremetalcyber.com. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Bare Metal Cybersecurity Plus podcast. For more episodes, tools, and study support, visit us at baremetalcyber.com. And before you take the test, make sure to check out the practice questions in the book Achieve CompTIA Security Plus SY0-701 Exam Success by Dr. Jason Edwards. They cover every domain and are a powerful way to lock in your knowledge.